Hey guys, how you doing? Out here in the barn playing around. I'm gonna show you how to trick out a mullet stick here. This is that pole we used yesterday, 20-footer. The one I'm getting should be coming in today. Called, this one here is Pack Hawk. LZ Striker. It says here this is a model number OLT-206. I've been using this one for years. I broke it a couple times, and anyway, it says here line size 12 to 18 pound, and it's 20 foot in length. Made in China. That's where all these things come from. That poundage on that thing is not what I use. I use 20 pound. This is 20 pound fluorocarbon. Fluorocarbon turns invisible when it gets in the water. Fish can't see it. That's why I like fluorocarbon. You don't really, they claim you don't really need it, but I use fluorocarbon on all of my, as my main line. Well, my spinners, I take that back. I use about a 40 pound spider wire with usually a 30 pound or 20 pound leader material for all my saltwater fish. But for mullet, this is my setup here. I'm going to show you how to build these little balsa wood floats. Yes, you can go to Wally World and get those little foam floats, but they're not as tough as these, and these aren't hard to build at all. I go to a craft store and get square stock, half-inch square stock, and I'll show you how to build these. They're quite simple to build. And the beauty of these, I had to do a lot of experimentation with these to get the right length. These are such sensitive, turn this thing off a minute. These are such sensitive biting fish that you won't detect the bite. I sit and watch a lot of people all the time, and then they miss fish like crazy because they can't see the bite. What happens is this lays flat on the surface because these little white pieces and these little small three hooks with the little white pieces on there, rubber pieces, they're so light they don't pull this cork upright. It lays flat, but when a mullet comes in and they just so subtle, this thing will start to rock at about 45 degrees, or sometimes when they bite hard, they just snatch this right under the water and you're coming up with it. But the majority of the time, they're going to just start tilting this thing slightly, about like that. When you see that, you're coming out of the water, you got him. So that's the little trick on that. What we're creating now is these hooks. What these come with is a little sharp, not sharp, but it's a little brass hook on these portions right here. And I'll tell you what, I've stabbed those things in my hand, because if you're not careful, you're running your hand down there when you catch a fish. And I have literally spiked those hooks, brass hooks, right in the corner. You talk about painful for about 2 weeks getting that to heal up. So that's when I said, no, we're not doing that no more. So that's when Steve-O comes up with the PVC hooks. That works great. This is not going to damage you, not going to hurt you. You can run your hand in here and it's not going to hurt you. So that's what I'm creating right now. I've already created one, and I cut it out of 1-inch PVC, schedule 40. This is schedule 40. And as you can see, I just cut it 2 inches long, a piece, but I split it first with a hacksaw. Just put it in a vise. I put it in the vise like this, clamped it in, and then just eyeballed it and saw horizontally right through, and you get your 2 pieces, and then measure 2 inches, cut it off. That's how I got this. Then I went over to my grinder wheel, and I went on the buffing wheel itself used this buffing wheel, wire wheel, and did radius this here and here, and cleaned it up. And then I grabbed it like so, and it went on the inside. Went on the inside here and roughed it up, because we're going to use JB weld for this. So you want to rough that up, and both sides, because you're going to paint it. I'm going to shoot a little black paint on it when we're done. So let's create this right now. I've already spread it too, by the way. This one here, I believe I made it out of 3/4. You can make them out of 3/4, but I went with 1 inch on this one. You can see it fits fine in there. You just want to do it until you get it, heat it. I just grabbed it with the needle nose, like so, heated it. Don't take long. Put it down, put your hand on it, smash it a little bit, and test fit it. Test fit it till you get it. Now we got to create the hook on this thing. So I'm going to grab it with these pliers here and just hit the top of this thing. It's already cooled from the spreading. I've already done that portion of it. Now we got to create the hook on here. It's just a cheap Harbor Freight heat gun. Grab it with your needle nose and pull it around. Wear gloves. Wear gloves, bring it around to where you like the looks of the hook. I'm going to say about like that. You see how I made this one? Create the same thing. Wear gloves and you won't get burnt. You bring it around, you just hold it there. If you have a cup of water, a bucket of water, you can dip it in and it'll instantly take a set. That's it. Now, I want to bring these edges in. I want to bring these edges in. Rough up the inside here where the JB is going to go. Knock that shine off of there. That looks pretty good. Okay, got it. Got it. There's our two pieces. It's ready to go. I was going to get regular set. Normally I get regular set JB Weld, but they are out of it. Here's the regular stuff. It's got red. It's a red labeling. A and B. But this has got a sets in 6 minutes, so you're going to have to, you know, you can't play around long with this stuff. Use a paper plate. Get a paper plate and mix it up. Get you some little old craft sticks to mix it. That's how we'll mix it. So we're waiting on that. Now, let me show you what to do on the end here. The other thing too, you can take a rubber band here and wrap it up, and you can put knots into whatever, adjust it, wherever your hooks end up, to come up here and hook onto your, for storage. Very simple. Be careful with these number 6 mullet hooks, guys. They are extremely deadly. They'll bury you in a heartbeat. And always carry when you're mullet fishing a pair of needle nose, because if you bury one of these hooks in you, and I have many times, I wear a glove with my catch hand, and they're coming in usually. If there's nobody around me fishing, I can usually just catapult these fish right up on the bank like you saw me doing yesterday. That's great. But you got a lot of people around you. I've got a matter of fact, I'm going to rig up my tub today. It's just a pickle barrel. I'm going to put rope handles on it so I can drag it, put a weight in the bottom of it, probably use maybe a 10-pound dumbbell I'll throw in the bottom of it. But here's the other thing, well, let me get back to the fish. When you're bringing them in, you're coming straight in with them. Your pickle tub is sitting here beside you. You bring them straight in, and you're going to grab that line with your hand. Well, these hooks are flying around and couldn't get you. And if you're careful, bring him in and just drop him right in that pickle barrel. Then you can get in there and carefully wrestle him down and get the hook out. But if you get a hook in you, get your needle nose, and you just, if it's hooked in this way, grab it to where you're rolling out, and you do it in a quick, fast yank session. Yeah, it only hurts for a second, guys. Only hurts for a second. Now, let me show you what I got here. When you buy one of these 20 footers, it comes out to a really thin, little flimsy tip on here. I'm cutting off about a foot of this rod to get into a thicker portion of this fiberglass. This is a smaller size shark hook. You just, to cut this, I go over to my grinder on the hard wheel, and I just slowly rotate it, and it cuts it with the abrasive wheel. Then you're going to take tissue paper and stuff down in here with a sharp object, toothpick or something. Get that toilet paper down to about here, pack it in pretty tight down into about in here. Because my hook shank's about this long, comes to about here. So pack it in to where you feel this hook is bumping that tissue paper. Pack it in fairly tight. Then take your hook and cut off the barb where it curls, cut it off, and you want about at least 1 inch or more of hook shank. This thing will last for years if you take care of it. This one's not rotted out yet. If it is, you're going to have to cut it off, shorten your rod, but it'll only be a little bit. So now you've created a rod that's stiff enough to handle these fish. I can pull out sheephead with this rod. When I'm working around dock pilings and stuff, I can snatch them right out from under them dock pilings with this rod. If you left that little whippy tip on here, it's going to snap right off, and it's able to bust your rod back into here. So you're cutting this thing back, you got some good solid meat here. All right, so then you mix up your epoxy, your JB Weld, Glue it up, push a lot of it in the hole. Take your hook shank, go over to your grinder and rough it up a little bit. You don't want a smooth shank, you want it roughed up so it'll grab that epoxy. And then just keep jobbing it in there and gluing that hook up. Once you got it in, now you get you some string, go into Miss Daisy's sewing kit, grab some thread, smear a little JB Weld on here and start wrapping. You want to beefing this tip up, make this strong. And then just final thing, once you think you got enough, put rubber gloves on. Get rubber gloves from Harbor Freight and just put it on there, smooth it out, let her sit for 24 hours, you come back. Now when you go to rigging your 20-pound mono on here, just put a regular fisherman's knot here. The fisherman's knot is where you put it through your eyelet, put it through the eyelet and come over here, leave about that much tail. Leave about that much tail because you're going to bring this tail back. You see I've got this tail back over here. Put it through the eyelet and wrap it around 5 or 6 times. Then you come back through the loop here on the outside of the hook eye, come through that loop here, and then come back through this loop here, wet it down with saliva and pull it up tight. If you don't put saliva on there, you're going to snap it, you're going to burn the line, it's going to weaken, it's going to break on your first fish. So do that, lubricate it with saliva, it'll slide down. That's it, that hook, that dude is there. Now you've got this tail piece, you'll see I put half hitch here. Just put it around and come around and put a half hitch. Come down here, put another half hitch. Come down a little further, put another half hitch. And then come back through that half hitch a few times and make a knot. Then to secure that knot so it doesn't come loose, get you some Gorilla Tape, a little sliver of it, and wrap it around there. Now that thing is complete. It is done. So that's how you do the eyelet. And I'll be back shortly. When I get my rod, we'll glue these on. We'll mix the epoxy. We'll glue this on. We'll wrap the end. And then I will show you how to build the corks. You can use, you don't want to fool around making corks. It's no big deal. But this cork works so slick. And like I said, what I do is take square stock, 1/2 inch balsa wood to create this, and I drill an 1/8 inch hole halfway through here, flip it over. Actually I put my drill right in the vise, lock it in with the 1/8 drill sticking out, and I turn the machine on, turn the drill on, and I just eyeball this in halfway. Don't go clear through because you'll pop out over it. Just halfway eyeball, turn it around, go this way. I make up about 20 of these in a sit at one time. So I'll do that drill process. You're going to cut these 2 inches. These are 2 inches long. And for sheephead fishing, use the same material, but I make them 5 inch. I tried 8 inch, 6 inch, and I kept fooling around. I made 4 inch. That wasn't getting it. So then I went to 5 inch. Bingo, perfect number for sheephead, because you're going to put a little split shot weight down below. So that ends up being the same situation. These sheephead bite as soft as these mullet bite. So that bobber will lay in there just like that when you come up on them pilings up around when you're fishing for sheeps. It'll lay on the water like that. This line will be down, of course. It'll be at 90 degrees going down. But when that sheephead touches it and he starts nibbling on your crab, that thing will start tilting and bring it up. You got him. Same situation as the mullet. But after I cut a bunch of these, say 20 of these, and I've done the 1/8 inch drill on both sides, I take the thing out and I put a chainsaw file in my drill motor. And that's what the size of a chainsaw file is. So then, say my 1/8 inch don't exactly center punch each other identical. No big deal. But you're going to put that chainsaw file in, and you're going to just hold it by hand and slide it right over. Let it go clear through and just run it in and out a couple times. Done. I've got some long needles I used in my taxidermy. Actually, you can see it right there. That's where I stick this long needle in, but you can use any kind of a needle. It will work fine. And the reason you use the needle is because you're going to be coating this with 5-minute epoxy. You get Lowe's 5-minute epoxy and you coat this thing. But what I did to paint, this is natural wood here. But to get this, create this fluorescent orange, because you want to be able to see it easily out there in the water. This is the top. Just put a piece of masking tape here and then get you some fluorescent orange in a spray can and just hit that and let it set. I stick my needle in here, spray it, and then stick it in a piece of foam, like I said, standing up. I can do 20 of them like that. Let that paint set. Then you're going to mix up your 5-minute epoxy. You can get it at Lowe's. Use rubber gloves. Dip your finger in it. Paint it all over it. Paint it all over it. And then you sit and turn it with that needle. Mix up very small batches. And you just sit there turning it. It doesn't take long and it'll set up. Then stick it in your foam and let it sit for 24 hours. You come back and I also take a little stick like a skewer, bamboo skewer, and I put epoxy on it and I go inside that hole, slick it up in there, because that's bare wood in there and salt water is going to get in there and eventually waterlog this and it's not going to be any good. So you job it up with your epoxy a little bit. And your needles here, you stick it in the foam, you let it sit for 24. Now you come back to your chainsaw file, because a lot of times the epoxy will close the hole up. Stick that up in there and run that and bore that hole back out. Just enough, not a lot. Don't go crazy because you'll knock out all your epoxy. Bore it out. Now these plugs, are hardwood plugs. You get those down there too. They're in a different bin. They're dowels. They're small dowels. You get these. And all I do is I come over to my grinder and I buff these down, sand these down till they got a little taper to them. I do the same thing with the needle trick. I stick a needle right there. And then I spray paint them black. Spray paint these black, let it set, come back 24 hours. Now they're ready for epoxy. And I can do these fairly fast because you're going to come over here with a needle on your paper plate and you're just going to twirl it in the epoxy and then come over here and stand it up in your foam and let that sit for 24 hours. Then you can come back. A lot of times there's a big gob here, you just buff it off and that's ready to go. Now you've created your plug to go in there, so you can see this line floats through here, so you can quickly adjust and just tap on it on the side of your pole or whatever you're out there. See, and it tightens it up just enough. It'll still slip. You can come out and see, you can move this thing for a quick adjustment. I fish down there at that mullet hole 4 feet deep. That bottom hook down there is 4 feet from the bottom of this here. 4 feet. You just eyeball it, and you have to play with it as the tide comes and goes. But that's that. Now, to turn this down, I've got a little all-thread rod. It's a really small brass rod that I stick through here, through this vision. This is square. Now I'm going to turn it cylindrical. Run that rod through, and I got enough rod to stick it in my drill motor. You want to put the drill motor on reverse, not forward, because the nuts will come undone. Because you're going to slide this down and then tighten up these nuts on here. I've got little washers too on each end that's smaller than this. So then what I do, I take emery cloth, I turn this on and it's running. I take emery cloth to get this shape. That's all, and it's really quick. You just run it on there. You can completely eat this thing up in a hurry because this balsa wood is very soft and lightweight. You'll eat it up fast. So you just lightly cover it just to knock off all the squares and make it a round tube, and that's it. So that's basically it. I'll when I get my epoxy, my pole in here, we'll glue her up and I'll show you what's happening. See you shortly. Okay guys, this is an eyelet I made up off of a circle hook. It's actually a circle hook for catching grouper. Pretty good sized circle hook. I banged it down on the anvil, got it straight. I've got probably, what have I got here? About 2 inches. And I've been packing paper in this thing. This is what I did. I used the tip here for a ramrod, but I cut this, I ground this off. It went right over the grinder there. And just spin it and cut this off. But I've removed 2 feet of this pole. Now I'm back into heavier material. Right here's the joint where it telescopes back in. So now I've got what I've got here now. The same as my other pole. It's 18 feet. I've also gone to the grinder. You can see I've made some grind marks, roughed this up so my JB weld will stick. So now we're going to put some rubber gloves on. We're going to right there, I'm against that paper right there, so I want to leave about that much sticking out because we're going to take our thread here, fly tying thread. We're gonna set this up in here first with JB weld. It's a fast curing. It's a 5-minute set. We're gonna let that set, and then I'm gonna come in here and smear JB. I'm gonna rough this up slightly with a file. I'm gonna smear JB on that thing, and I'm gonna start wrapping, and I'm gonna wrap down to about here. Okay, so that's what we'll do. I'll be back in a few. Okay, I'm cutting up these 2-inch long balsa wood out of square stock. This stuff cuts like melted butter. I'm using a fine tooth hacksaw. That's all you need for this. Cuts like melted butter. I'm doing this while my rod tip here is, my eyelet is setting up. It's got 5-minute epoxy on it. It's going to set fast. Then we'll do the wrap on that. Here's my arbor that goes in my drill motor. It's got actually, I took this off of actually this bolt here came out of one of those toggle bolts. You put through the wall to hold stuff up. That's what I made this out of, a toggle bolt. I got, see here, 2 small brass washers. I'm going to set my drill in here in a minute. We'll go through that. This is going to go on my drill like this. My piece of wood, it'll be my mandrel. And then we're going to make them cylindrical with this fine mesh sanding paper. So let me get these cut up and we'll get back at the motor set up and I'll get that done. Okay guys, I got a piece of foam down there at the hobby shop where I got all this balsa wood. Urethane foam. This block was this long. I cut it down. This is going to be our stand. This piece, by the way, I've been making some long bows. They're out of fiber. They're out of bamboo. They're out of bamboo and ipe, which is a Brazilian mahogany. And I'm going to create this handle right here. This is an old bear bow, old compound from the 60s, I think. I don't know what. This thing, I like to feel it as handle on here. I like to feel it at handle. And what I'm going to do is create a handle with this. I'm going to make a plug with this piece of foam. The same, I'm going to copy in that bear handle. And I'm going to make it out of this foam. Then I'm going to use this as my plug. And I'm going to make a fiberglass mold of this. I'm going to, when I get this to shape and feel that I like, it's going to match that. Then I'm going to coat it with a thin coat of Bondo and smooth it out, smooth as a baby's butt. Then I'm going to take playing cards, regular deck playing cards, and I'm going to hot glue it on the center line all the way around that thing. Then I'm going to put those little round rubber balls the kids play with. I'm going to take some of those, cut them in half, and they will be stuck to the sides. Actually, this will be standing up. It'll be stuck to the sides of these playing cards. You can just envision playing cards stuck to this thing all the way around. And I'm going to put half of those balls on there. And then I'm going to mirror glaze wax it as a mold release. Then I'm going to Bondo my first coat. Then put fiberglass chop on it. And then once that sets up, I'm going to make a thick mold. It's going to be bulletproof. Then I'm going to flip it over, peel off all those playing cards. Now I've created a big flange out here with those half balls on there. Those balls come out. Now I've got a concave. Now I've got a concave in 4 points here. That's going to be a key lock. Now I'm going to mirror glaze this side. And with this flange, it's going to be coming out. I'm going to have about 2-inch flange all the way around this thing. I may make a video of this if anybody's interested. And then once I do that on both sides, when that sets up, I can split it, discard this. Now I've got a mold. Then what I'm going to do is take this mold, I'm going to envision flanges all the way around on this thing like this. I'm going to take off the flanges off the top, all this right down to the top of this thing. Now I've got an open port here and an open port here on both sides with the flanges with those key ball locks on there. Then I'm going to take my bamboo and ipe longbow and I'm going to, this will be separate, it'll come apart, and I'm going to encompass that bow with this. And it'll come in here and fall right dead on that, and I'll adjust it up and down where I want it. Then I'm going to take epoxy sculpt and pack it in there all around that bow. I'll rough that bow up, and I'll put mold release too on the inside of this 2-part mold, because if you don't, it's going to be locked up. You'll never get it apart. Then I will pack epoxy sculpt down in there tight, all the way flush on both ends of that bow riser. When that sets, I'll be able to pop it off, and I will have that handle incorporated and encompassed around that bow. So that's another little project I got coming up. But for right now, I need a little platform for our operation here. So let's put a little hot glue on this puppy here. This is going to be holding up our floats. That'll be holding up our floats. This here. Now, the needles I was telling you about, these are taxidermy needles, adjustment pins. Use these for fowl, any of your head work. You can get these at Van Dyke Supply, Taxidermy Supply. Any company's got them. You could probably find these at a craft store. They're just a long cylindrical needle. We use these a lot in bird taxidermy because you got to arrange the feathers and all, and you just plunge these right on into the mannequin where you want it, and it'll adjust. But what's nice about this is you can once I get this thing cylindrical, I pop it right in there like that, and I can come over to my foam here and stab it in. Now I've got some way to hold this stuff. So what I'm doing here is took a ballpoint pen. These are all been drilled. You just take a ballpoint pen here and you just come over here and eyeball it. And this balsa wood is so soft, you see, you can punch a center hole right in there. Just like that. Just eyeball it in. It doesn't got to be perfect, exact. See, you just poke it in there. This keeps your bit from wallowing all over the place. You've already got a little mini hole started. You've got a little miniature hole started here, so your bit will fall right into it. So we're going to end up with 17 of these corks. Mullet bobbers. We're going to have 17 of them out of that stick, and that's going to be plenty. I picked up a piece of dowel rod. These will be shaped into our plugs that go in. This is actually stuff you should be doing way before the mullet time comes. So that's all set up with my glue. Now I got a nice platform here. I got to go out to the shop and get a bunch more of these needles, and we'll rock and roll with that in a bit. Let me change this out to a chainsaw file and we'll bore the hole. Okay guys, here got my chainsaw file in, and the pointy end, I put the fat end back here in the chuck, the pointy end's here, and what you do is, again, only halfway, going about halfway, but you don't leave this running. I'll show you why. This thing will really get to flopping, so what you want to do is just start it in the hole and then work it with your other hand here, like so. Just go in about halfway, flip it over, start your, and now you can run it all the way in, see. There you go, now you created that hole in there. Very simple to do. Nice. So go through all them like that. Halfway. It's an eyeball affair. Just eyeball straight down through. You can blow right to the side of these things if you don't want to. Just like that. Alright guys, you got to, my chainsaw file, this is a different file than I had last season, and it's a little bit smaller diameter. So all you got to do, I got to have it, the hole big enough to get my mandrel through, to go onto my drill, so we can turn this thing like a little mini lathe. So all you do, this one slides in nice, so we'll put that over here in the good pile. We'll grab this one here. See, it's really tight. Let's grind her out until we get it right. If you get a little bit big, if you guys get a little bit big, it's all right. It ain't gonna hurt a thing. We just don't want it so tight we can't easily push this mandrel through like this. Okay, that one's done. All right, I gotta go through all these. Yeah, that's what we're looking for right there. Now what I'm going to do is put that little brass, I'm going to sand it down to where I'm just touching that little brass washer. I'm going to stick that in there. I'm going to put that little washer on there. Tighten up this little wing nut. Like I said, this came out of, if you look at those toggle bolts you put through wall, the whole frames or pictures or, you know, brackets on walls, that little nut's what's inside one, and I just stole the bolt out of it. Okay, that dude's tightened up in there like so. Now we have a mandrel in there. Let's get this chainsaw file out of here. Keep this chainsaw file handy, because once we do our epoxy, our final epoxy coat, the last thing we're going to do, we're going to run this back through. We're going to run this chainsaw file back through to clean out any gnarly stuff to where we can pass our monofilament through there. So basically all you're doing here is making a mini lathe. Very simple mini lathe. Now what you want to do is put this thing on reverse. Get this puppy going the other way to keep the nuts from backing off. If you go this way, the nut will just spin off and this will go flying. There's a little bit of a flat left on that, but not much. That's actually going to be good for me right there. That's pretty much a finished bobber right there. I know what you're saying, Steve. Oh, you're going through an awful lot of work to make a stupid bobber. I can get these at Wally's World for a little nothing. Yeah, you can. The little old foam ones. And I'll tell you what, I'm brutal on this equipment. And when you're slamming this stuff around, these little, once these get built, these little epoxy floats, they're pretty tough. Now for sheephead, I make one 5 inches. The same situation. I make them 5 inches long. But 2 inches ideal for this mullet action. It took me a little bit of experimentation to get this thing correct. So there it is. That's it. Now I got to go through 17 of these, make them all cylindrical like this. And then what I'll do is pick a fat portion of this, like say right here. Don't get too crazy because it can split out on you. This wood is very soft. Just like that. And the next procedure will be putting a little bit of tape here, halfway. Take a little painter's tape and get this thing eyeballed halfway, like so. Wrap it up. Wrap it up. I couldn't find any fluorescent orange down there at the craft store, so I just went ahead and went with what I've got here. Once you get going on these, it don't take long, and you're not, one of these corks will last the whole season pretty much, but the problem I have is I got a lot of fishermen down there and they go, Steve-O, where did you get that float? And I reach in my pocket, I always have some in my pocket, and I pull out of my top pocket, and I said, I got them right here in my pocket. So I give them floats. They get all happy, you know. All right, so we're gonna just hit this. Just like that. That's all there is to it. Then you're gonna come over to your little foam here. Stick it in your foam, let it dry. I got a fan blowing here. Got a fan blowing across here. So I'm gonna get all these done. We'll get them all standing up. When them dry, this stuff here shouldn't take long at all to dry. I'll go ahead and be epoxying these today. And you can do a few at a time, because we do this epoxy thing. I'll set some epoxy here and put it in, but I gotta twirl these. Don't take long, just a few minutes. You'll see it start slowing down to try to drip, and then it'll stop, and then you just stick in your foam. Then you come back 24 hours, and then you're ready to, I'm gonna do the inside too. And what I did was saved this portion that I cut off from my pole. This was attached to that top. Save this, and this will be a tool we can just dip in our epoxy, come inside and slobber that all up inside internally. So we'll save this part and use it as a tool. All right, we'll be back in a minute. Let me get all these tuned up here. Why are you people eating all of my duck food? Why? Who do you think you are? You act like you own the place. In Florida, these are protected, but in Texas, I understand you can hunt these sandhill cranes. And Ted Nugent says that's his ribeye in the sky, he calls it. Okay, Ted. It's your world. We just live in it. Stop eating my corn. They don't listen. Oh well. Thought I had more of these long needles, but I got out there and couldn't find them. Used them up, I guess. I gave away quite a bit of taxidermy supplies when I retired from that little operation. Okay. Okay, we got a nice little pile of them here. Yeah, well, those are drying. I'm gonna set them over here. Let's grab this rod. Here's something else not good on these rods when you get them. This has to be taken care of because these will hurt you. These are line keepers here where you can wrap your line around. Here's what you do with these. You break them off. Those puppies will hurt you. Actually, I'm going to grind those down. Okay guys, about to wrap up this little project here. Last thing we're going to do is just rough up this rod. I popped off those two stupid hooks they had on here that will hurt you. I have run those things in my hand, and I'll tell you what, it's painful. So eliminate them. Rough this up. Just an old coarse rasp. Now you're going to take your hooks. Keep in mind which way they go. You want to put them back. Hooks will go like this, back to back, because you're wrapping the string around them like so. See? Kind of line them up like that. Now you got a nice wrapping device there. Our tip's right here. We got to finish that. Got to finish that up. So I'll mix up some JB here. I should have enough to make enough here for both of these little projects. I think I'll do is just make up enough to glue on these for right now. And you just eyeball it 50-50. This is a 5-minute set, so you can't play around very long. Get my hooks going the right way. Kind of push it in, wiggle it around a bit. Just like that, guys. Supposed to have rubber gloves on. I got in a hurry and forgot them. Kind of sight down through here and tweaked it a little bit. That's that. Is this stuff gooey enough here yet? Yeah, it's still pretty good. Let's paint some on here. I'm going to put some rubber gloves on for this operation. I'll be coming back and spray painting those black too, so they don't look so stupid. Stay up there. All right, let's wrap this puppy up here. You don't have to have this little fancy fly tying thing here. You can just use this, steal some of your wife's sewing thread and do this same thing. But at least come down, you know, a couple inches on this tip with this epoxy and string. And that'll really strengthen this tip. There's going to be a lot of pressure on this when these big fish hit this thing. She's starting to set up. Yeah, that's already kicked. This is already kicking. It's all right, I'll make it work. She's kicking. There. Got it just in the nick of time. We got it just in the nick of time, guys. That's all you need right there. That will do it. Alright guys, that's pretty much it. You see how I built the floats? Now what we do, we come back. You don't need to see all that. I think you've got it from here. No rocket science here. You're going to mix up. I've got clear, JB Well clear, 2-part epoxy. This stuff is some kind of strong too. It's 3,900 psi strength. And it sets in 5 minutes and it dries clear. This is what you want. You can go with this here too if you're doing a small amount, but you can do it like this. You can get probably 5 floats or so out of that little bit. So I've got plenty of stuff here. I've got other projects coming up. I needed that anyway. So that's it. I will get a paper plate, mix that up, that epoxy, put it on here, and just use rubber gloves, and I'll paint this on. I will take at the same time this little tool here, run epoxy on it, and run it into this tube and get that juiced up in there really good on the inside. Then you're going to come back to your foam and let that puppy set for 24 hours. And that's it. That is how you trick out a mullet stick. Glad you came by today, guys. Hopefully you learned something, and if you ever get to Florida, I'll be down there at Jenkins Creek probably all winter, at least right up to January, off and on. So you'll probably see me down at Jenkins Creek, and by December we'll be slamming them. I can go down there some days. Your bag limit's 50. But trust me, you don't want to clean 50 fish in a day. I usually shut it off at 30 in my box. And if I see other people there who are looking hungry and they need fish and they're not catching them, they don't have the technique, whatever, I give them fish. I'll sit there and fill their box up. Do it every year. It's a lot of fun, and keeps you out of jail. And unless you go over the limit. I see there's one old tobacco spitting country girl down there. She goes down there and she'll sit there, and she's good. She's good at it. She don't even put the little white pieces on the hook like I do. She fishes with a bare gold hook, and I've tried it, and I just don't seem to. Whatever. This girl's got the knack. Sits there and chews beach nut, spitting around. She'll fill that box up with 50 fish. She'll get on her cell phone, call her boyfriend. He comes flying in there with his 4x4. He grabs her bucket, her cooler, drops her another cooler full of ice, jumps in the truck with them fish, and he's gone. And I guess he runs them into town and then sells them to somebody on the black market. So that's how you work that deal. Until you get caught by Johnny Warden, and then, you know, it's probably not good. So anyway, that's a little story. I will talk to you guys later, and see you later, and be happy. Bye bye.